do officially our Kevin Durant's the focus here because we all assume that Kevin Durant will be moved. He has 1 million on his deal, but we all assume that reading all the tea leaves and what's coming out of Phoenix that it's more than likely he will be moved from the Phoenix Suns this summer. The question is where. So we've talked about this like behind the scenes, you and I, about good fits, and on the pod too, also about places he could play for, and we defend why it's a good fit here or whatnot. So we decided to do a 5-round draft, and we'll draft the teams of places that he could potentially end up there, and we'll defend a position why we believe he will fit in this X person in the situation. So, again, Greg, since you're the guest, you will go first. So let's kick off our Kevin Durant futures draft.
Okay, I should put as a disclaimer that I don't think that it's a lock that he gets moved as much as I did maybe a month
of course,
ago.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say it is because it makes all the sense in the world for Phoenix to trade him and to start resetting. But I think the market for him is going to be much lower. Like there's going to be 15 teams, let's say, that would want his services.
Yeah.
But trading what Matt Ishbia would deem acceptable for what they gave up for him and knowing a player of his caliber, I think there's going to be a disconnect there. So I don't know that a trade is going to be as easy as we might think, just because I don't see a team giving up a lot of draft capital, which is what Phoenix would require in a trade, plus a player who can play. So they would want an Andrew Wiggins and multiple picks that it's like, I don't think Ishbia has any interest in resetting. Like he doesn't have any interest in rebuilding, tearing
especially
it down.
now if the rumors are true, they're going to Bob Myers.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, he's going to hire a guy that Bob Myers was a guy who basically kept Golden State afloat and never went down the rebuild route.
Greg, spoiler: the Suns are on the board for me. So him staying in Phoenix is on the board for me. Spoiler alert. So pick your first team, and we'll go from there and defend why that's a good fit or good situation for Kevin Durant this summer and beyond.
Okay, so given everything that I just said, I don't think a trade is super easy, but I think that my number one team makes sense for a lot of reasons, and I think there's an easy way to make it happen and might be palatable for both teams. And I'm going to say the Knicks at number one.
Okay, I like that one. And this is also,
and I don't think it's enough to just say, oh, he should go to this team, and then not give like a trade or why it might work. So I mean, like I look at the way the Knicks are going in the playoffs. I think that they have major changes coming. Not just in terms of the coach, but in terms of trying to reshape the roster. They obviously have a lot of good players. You know, maybe they fit, maybe they don't. Obviously, the first round will dictate a lot of how extreme they want to get with it. But I think that for Durant, they could easily do a Mikal Bridges sign and trade and just make it work 1-for-1. Maybe you throw a swap in there. Well, if I'm the Knicks, I would say, hey, Bridges is 9 years, 8-9 years younger than Durant. You're lucky to be getting a player of that caliber. We already know that Bridges got along really well with Devin Booker. He played well in Phoenix. And you could make the argument that Bridges might not love playing in this Knicks system necessarily because it's basically Brunson monopolizing the ball plus Towns. So when they're actually running an offense, it's a two-man game. And he sort of doesn't have like as defined the role. He plays best basketball. And
he's the fourth option, I think, on offense in the starter. I think it's him, those two, then OG, then him.
Yeah. So when Brunson was hurt, Bridges was averaging, I crunched the numbers. I think it was like 22.4 points per game or something like that on around 50% shooting. So I mean, no, he's not the defender that he used to be or was expected to be, but 22 points per game on 50% shooting, like. You could make the argument that you'd sign up for that. And if you're the Suns and you have to get rid of him because he's going to be a free agent after next season, and, I doubt that he would resign there given the direction the franchise is going, I think Bridges would be good value for him. And that's not even incorporating any picks or anything. It's just a 1-for-1 sign and trade. And then,
it would probably be the least damaging transaction for hoarding off assets.
And I think that the Suns will want picks. Not that the Knicks have a lot of picks to give. They might only have one or two assets that they can trade after everything they gave up for Bridges. So I mean, it's not ideal from the Knicks standpoint to just move off of him. But if you get Kevin Durant to sign the Jimmy Butler deal, like a 2-year, $121 million deal, you could make the argument that, and then look, I don't know what you do with Towns. Maybe you try and move Towns in addition to that. Maybe you're overhauling it completely, and then you've got OG, you've got Durant, and you've got Brunson, and then you're going in a completely different direction, whether that's trying to move Towns for another star or whether it's trying to accumulate a lot of assets. I mean, Towns is going to be a second or third team All-NBA center. So, I mean, like, it's not like there won't be a market for a guy averaging 25 and 12. And not saying that they're going to trade him.
But it's weird, though, you want to get rid of Cat, though, because, not saying you, but because Cat was, he was on our All-NBA team this year, and our picks and on awards last week, and he'll probably be on the NBA as well this year, too, also. And, he was probably at one point this year flirting with the top 3 MVP discussion.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying that depending on how this first series goes, there's all sorts of ways they could blow it up. So, I mean, it's not as if that because they don't have picks, they don't have assets. So
I think their issues are Tom Thibodeau only. They have
and I mean, look, that might be an easy solution. And again, he's been terrible. So I mean, like, what they've done in the first 2 games has been laughable. And then for him to come out in the post game and say that the officiating wasn't fair, like, the reason why you didn't get any free throws is because you were running ISO all game. Like, it's hard to get free throws just by telling your point guard go bait for fouls. So I mean, like, that is not an offense. And then to criticize the officials, like, no, that's on you. That's not on them. So I mean, as for the Durant thing, I think that he might regret maybe not playing for the Knicks the last time he came to New York. And I think he could look at that and say, okay, they have Brunson. They have some good pieces around him. And look, even if you keep Cat, Durant, and Brunson and Anunoby, like, that's really good. And I'm not saying that'd be palatable for Phoenix. I'm just saying that, like, I could make the argument that if they go in that direction, that puts them in a better spot than they are today.
And healthcare aside too, also, notwithstanding anyway, you're probably getting 3 to 4 years left to Durant. Durant is, look at LeBron, and obviously LeBron is a god when it comes to the way he looks. But KD is top 15 guy in the league still one of the best scorers in the league. He's not, doesn't come down to ego. He wants to play. And as long as he get hurt, he's still valuable to a contending team. So there is that, you're not getting, it's 37 years old. Yeah, but it's not 37-year-old, Vince Carter. This is Kevin Durant, who's still a top 15 player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, he could be 45 and using a walker out there. He's still going to be able to get his shot because he's 6'11", and he's got a long wingspan, and he's one of the better shooters in the league. Yeah. So, I mean, like, his shooting, that's why, like, with the Achilles injury, it's like I'm not necessarily worried about him in that regard because his game isn't predicated on athleticism. He can get his shot at 35, at 40, at 45. He'll be able to make shots, and it's going to be nearly impossible to guard because there aren't that many guys that are 6'11" with that wingspan that can shoot like that. So, I mean, it's just a very – I don't think that if you're trading for him, you're only getting him for a year or two and then he's retiring. I think that he could have a 3, 4, 5-year rest of his career.
Right. All right. My first pick in the draft is going to be – I'm going to go straight homer here. You already see it. Miami Heat. Now, the only weird fit of this one is that KD isn't what you would call a quintessential leader, if you will. Like, he's not a leader of men in the same way, say, LeBron is or Jordan was. And it's fine because he's never asked to be that person. He wants the ball. He just happens to be one of the best players to ever play the game who does not necessarily want to be a leader type, whatnot. So that my only concern would be like who will be that guy for the Heat on the court? Because that was Jimmy's role before he left. Now Bam has kind of stepped up a little bit in recent years, taking that place, But I do think if Durant wants to go to a team that has a little bit less pressure, but also a team committed to winning, and to me, a culture and a team that can just use one piece and has pieces they can move also too to sweeten that deal. I think Miami is a great fit. Now, obviously, depending on what you lose, does a Durant Hero Bam combination challenge Boston in the East? I still have my doubts because I think Boston's roster is that much deeper, but it puts them in the conversation. It puts them in the top 6 conversation in the East, certainly. I will say that.
Yeah, and I had them high on my list too, Miami. Look, it makes them a better team tomorrow than they are today. So, I
Yes,
mean, that trade, me looking at it, is probably like Wiggins plus,
pieces, a
plus
draft pick or two.
picks. Again, I don't know that I want to give up multiple first round picks for a player that can be a free agent after next season. Not saying he wouldn't re-sign with Miami. It's just that given his age, given his injury history, and again, I'm not worried about him coming back from injuries. I'm just saying if he winds up missing 25 or 30 games, like, do I want to give up 2 firsts? I mean, I guess if you protect them, if you like lottery protect the picks, and
But I do think him having 1 year left in his deal though makes it where Phoenix may not have as much leverage as you think.
oh no, totally. They have virtually no leverage, which is
Right,
why I think a lot of these trades are hard because I
right.
feel like Ishbia isn't going to want to take back what teams are willing to give up, which is next to nothing, knowing that he's entering the last year of his deal. So I feel
Right.
like so Wiggins and a pick is probably the best they can do, but is that enough for Ishbia to say I'm giving up a top 15 player in the league and I'm taking back a decent role player who also misses a lot of games and a pick that I really probably can't move for something else?
Right. All right. Your second pick, third pick in the draft. What you got?
So my second pick, third overall pick, I have the Spurs.
I love that one. Love that one.
I will say that I feel like if Giannis becomes available, they're a much more natural fit for Giannis than anything else. But I feel like if Giannis doesn't become available, then Durant to the Spurs makes a lot of sense because the Spurs really could go any direction they want. I mean, they have 2 lottery picks this year. They have Stephon Castle, they have Devin Vassell, they have Jeremy Sohan. And I mean, this is more making the argument for a Giannis trade, like a big trade. But if they don't want to give up a lot of those pieces and keep a lot of those pieces, I mean, if they gave up one of those lottery picks this year, plus Keldon Johnson, plus some salary, or plus, one of those young players, let's say it's like Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, and the 13th or 14th pick in the draft. Well, I guess it would be 4 teams. They lost the coin toss. So assume that they don't move up with that Atlanta pick, the 14th pick in the draft and salary and filler. I mean, that might be as good as they're going to get given what else is available and a lot of stars being moved. Like we just said, if the market is diminished, that might be as good as you can do. And he's just a natural fit next to Wemby and next to Fox. You have 2 stars already there.
If it costs them, if it costs them little to get him in San Antonio, they're immediately in the title discussion.
Yeah.
If we're assuming Wemby's healthy, De'Aaron Fox, Wemby, and then Kevin Durant with all those little pieces around them. Oh my God! And the West is not outside of OKC for the next couple of years. Which team in the West are you looking at as like the dominant fixture? Like I guess Denver's still kind of there with Jokic, but who knows who knows how they look like in the next couple of years?
Yeah, and that's why I've made the argument more for Giannis than for Durant. But I mean,
and we'll do a separate one on that one.
And I know, but I'm just saying that the Spurs have so many assets. I mean, they've got most of their own firsts. They've got 2 lottery picks this year. Castle's going to win Rookie of the Year. Any team that's starting to rebuild, like if you're Milwaukee and you're trying to rebuild, starting with Castle is a good place to start, plus all the other assets. So, I mean, like, they can go in any direction they want. I don't know if they want to accumulate, if the Spurs would want to like slow play it, go for Durant, keep most of their assets, and then just add him to like an already deep team, or if they want to swing for the fences and try and put like, a super team on the floor. So, I mean, I don't know what the Spurs motivation is, but I think it's a pretty seamless fit. And they have so many assets that I feel like parting with 1 or 2 of them is a lot easier to keep your depth and still add a guy like Durant to that nucleus.
Right. All right. My 4th pick in this. This may shock some here. Maybe shock you. But I'm picking the Denver Nuggets. So this is a team that, depending how things play out in these next couple of games and weeks and whatnot, could be in transition. I mean, they're already starting there with the new GM and new coach. But if this thing ends early this year, too, on top of that, now what? Now you're looking at Jokic, and obviously he's the future, but you look at the pieces around him. We assumed when they won a title 2 years ago that, okay, well, this course together the next 3-4 years, they should at least get one more title out of this, But now you have a year where you lose in the second round of playoffs last year to Minnesota. And then the year after that, you lose in the first round to the Clippers, hypothetically speaking, of course. how's that look now going in? That means the honeymoon period's over for the title. I mean, it probably is over anyway because when you fire the coach and GM that helped put together that team. Yeah, I think that bursted a couple weeks ago. So now what? You look at those pieces, and we've discussed in this podcast that Jamal Murray, while a very good player, we agree with that. Is when we look at these contracts, he might have one of the 5 worst contracts in basketball. Not just because not because he's not good, just because the fact that the value, the number versus the availability and the injuries and all these other things. Is he really that good? Is he really that worth that kind of money? And he got that money because of the fit with Nikola Jokic. Anywhere else, I don't think you pay him that kind of money. So does Denver get a little bit like desperate and say, we got to add a spark? We have a window, and this is the team now. When you win a title, you have a guy like Jokic he's not old yet, but he's he's in his prime. You want to maximize. That's the priority is to maximize.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant, again, he's 37, 36, 37, but he's not your typical. He's not Vince Carter. I mean to pick on Vince Carter here, but you're getting Kevin Durant fits the Denver Nuggets timeline right now, based on where they're at with Jokic in that core. And I looked at the contracts for example, some of the pieces around them. Jamal Murray might be the one guy you can't really move because he has 4 more years left in his deal and making 50. Was it next year at 46, then 50, then 53, and then 57? He ain't moving. However, Porter Jr. has 2 years left in his deal, 38 and 40, and then Aaron Gordon, his contract's actually more friendlier. 22 and then 31. Oh no, and then 34. Oh, well, never mind. 34, 37. Okay, never mind. But still, the number's a lot lower than
he signed an extension, I believe.
He did, yeah. But the number's a little bit lower than Porter Jr. So, and I think you'd rather keep Gordon than Porter Jr. just because of the ability aspect of that. Having said all that, I can see a scenario where they can move one of those two guys and bring in Kevin Durant.
And yeah, it's a good pick. He would be a great fit there. And to be honest, Jokic has had so much success with Jamal Murray. I think that he likes Murray being there, and if they could just add Durant on top of that, and that's your core 3, I think that would obviously make them title contenders tomorrow. And I mean, you can make the argument that, I mean, look, I know they're title contenders now because of Jokic. Jokic is amazing, but I mean, his cast is limited. I feel like adding Durant to that gives him a legitimate like star caliber,
nice shot in the arm.
Yeah, wingman that he's never really had before. So I mean, I feel like it definitely changed the dynamic of their team to where they're a more legitimate threat than they are now. I think Porter would be the natural guy to go. Would that be okay for Phoenix? You'd probably have to throw in a couple of the younger guys. Like would a trade of Julian, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I don't have the trade machine in front of me, but like would Porter Jr., Julian Strother, and Pickett or Watson, one of those two, let's say Peyton Watson, just for argument's sake. Like,
the only thing attractive about Porter Jr.'s contract is that it's the smallest in terms of the duration. It's the smallest of the bunch. Like it's 2 more years left, so you have you eat 1 year at 38, and then on the expiring year, you can maybe use a tradable contract somewhere else.
And also maybe you look at if you're Phoenix, like, can we do a little rebuilding on the fly? Can he step in for Durant? And he's never really been a featured player. Can we rehabilitate his image to the point where maybe he averages 25 points a game because he's getting a high volume of shots and he's given an opportunity he's never gotten before? And then at that point, could we then move him for multiple pieces after that? Or does he turn into something we want to keep? Like, I feel like next year probably should be, if they're trading Durant, more of a transition year. I know that Ishbia is not going to want to tear it down to the studs, but can they reassemble their pieces and then maybe learn something about those pieces going forward, be it whether they want to move a guy like Porter Jr. if they can get his value up, or is he good enough that they could add around him and Booker? I just don't think that the appetite is going to be there to totally tear it down. So you have to try and give them pieces that might make sense, and maybe they could make the argument like, oh, Julian Strother's a good role player when he's healthy. Watson's been a good player. And if you're Denver, you're trying to maximize Jokic's window, like you said, so you'll part with some of those pieces. And, you're not giving up first-round picks. You're giving up guys who are nice role players and maybe will be better with more opportunity, but they're not ever going to be stars, but they can still be useful to a team that's got no depth like Phoenix. So, I mean, I could see that making sense.
All right. Round I guess third pick for you. Your third pick. the 5th pick in the draft.
Yeah, so I mean, much the same as with San Antonio. I have Houston. I think that I know there's been a lot of talk lately from like Mark Stein and Chris Haynes that Houston has got loftier goals, I think, than Durant because of his age and all that. But let's face it, like if Durant's the only guy that's on the market, I think ultimately Houston's season is going to end, whether it's in round 1 or round 2 or 3. Like I don't see this team winning a title, and what's ultimately going to be their downfall is their shooting. So then at that point, what do you then move off of to get some shooting? If you can't get one of the major players, I feel like Durant certainly makes sense. And they have so many assets, just like with San Antonio. I mean, they've got the entire Phoenix draft. So I feel like because they have their draft, it's probably an easy swap to just say, we'll give you your 2027 first back and some salary. Would Reed Shepherd, Dylan Brooks, and another salary at Jock Landale and your first back be palatable? You're getting a young point guard who was the 3rd pick in the draft last year. Maybe there's no room for him going forward in Houston. So that's a valuable piece. And then getting your own pick back, that's also valuable. Like for a 37-year-old who's going to be a free agent after next year, like that's pretty good value. And Houston really wouldn't be moving anything off their core. So they're still keeping a lot of their guys. So, I mean, I feel like much like San Antonio, that's an easy trade, I feel like, for Houston to make. I don't know that the desire is there for Houston, but given that I feel like shooting is going to be their downfall at some point in this playoffs based on how it looked in game 1, I don't think you can argue with the idea that they should add some perimeter scoring.
Right. And of course, Houston. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he didn't drive Houston a little higher, but because you've been kind of teasing that for all year long, actually, on the show. So, but yeah, Houston.
Yeah, but I think it's gotten to the point that the assets that Houston has are so valuable that it's like they could go big game hunting. Like they could, like if they wanted, again, Giannis would be the obvious one, but also if a Trae Young, if a John Morant, or if like a
Giannis fit. To be honest, Giannis is probably better fit because he fits the timeline better than Durant. Just because
and so it's funny. I was watching. I saw a clip online, and so I watched it through, and it was from First Things First with Nick Wright and Chris Broussard, and they made the case for Houston, and basically the trade was Reed Shepherd. Who else was it? It was Reed Shepherd, Alperen Şengün, and I think Jock Landale for salary purposes, and 4 firsts, 2 of them being.
I would never get rid of Şengün though. Şengün's one you want to keep the
core. You have to realize that if you're looking at it from Milwaukee's standpoint, you need to get pieces back for Giannis. If Giannis is the 2nd best player in the league, what is Şengün? Is he the 20th best player? Like they've got to get something back of value. And so I would say
get draft picks then.
Well, yes, but I mean, you also need something to sell your fans. So, I mean, I don't know that Milwaukee is just looking for draft picks. So, I mean, I feel like they're going to need some young players, and that's where Reed Shepherd comes in. And again, I think that the price for him is going to be astronomical, that if he were to become available. So that's why you're talking about with San Antonio, a Stephon Castle who's going to win Rookie of the Year. You're talking about a Şengün who's already like an all-star. You're going to need something going back in addition to the picks. So, I mean, and look, maybe that's not the move. Maybe you're trading more than 4 picks. Maybe you're trading 5 or 6 picks, and you're trading Dylan Brooks' salary instead of Şengün's. I mean, like I'm sure there's different ways to create a trade. And maybe it's Jabari Smith in the deal along with
maybe
Reed Shepherd. So I mean, and again, I know this is veering off of Durant, but I'm just saying that like the reason why I moved Houston a little lower is because I feel like they have so many assets because the Suns draft picks are just so valuable given that they look like they're kind of screwed. So if you have their 25, their 27, their 29 firsts, that's a good place to be. And I think that those picks hold a lot of value across the league. So I don't know that Durant would be worthy of like moving off of multiple picks, let alone one of them. And look, Houston could always trade a protected first of their own, because they still have all their picks. So I mean, they could move that too.
All right, my 3rd pick, 6th pick in the draft, top 10. You just teased a little while ago. I'm gonna go Milwaukee on this one. I already teased it months ago on the show about depending where the team sees themselves. Are your team trying to add a piece to win a title? Are your team trying to keep your core together? Or are your team trying to sell off? Milwaukee's in that kind of that weird place now where like Giannis's peak is right now, but we've also said that Giannis's peak could be shorter because of the fact that his skill set is not as broad as say Kevin Durant's is. Like like if Giannis had even half of Durant's perimeter game, I'm not worried about Giannis into his 30s. But it's not, and I'm not. I feel insulting saying that comparing to Joel Embiid because Joel Embiid's issues more about injuries because Giannis is very durable. But because Giannis's game is not, it's all bully ball based.
Yeah.
As it gets older, that will diminish. You know what I mean? And then what do you have? KD has that. So the question is now the window. So Damian Lillard's what, 35 now? His window's maybe two.
He's 34, but he'll be, assuming that they get bounced in the first round. So next year, you've got a 35-year-old point guard.
Now, granted, his game also like Steph Curry can age as well too. Also, so he still has a realistic 3 to 4 year window. Okay, Giannis probably 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years if he continues to keep himself healthy. Kevin Durant fits that window. So if you're a team like Milwaukee that's still trying to see themselves as a contender but needs more pieces, he's probably the cheapest piece you're going to get right now that still fits your timeline. So KD will be a great fit there. It will open things up for Giannis in the paint. And I think you can make an argument that team with Durant in tow, as long as you keep some of those young pieces, can compete with Boston and Cleveland in the Eastern Conference right now in the immediate future.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Durant would be a great fit next to Giannis. The only issue that I have is that I just don't know how the logistics of that trade work, because I think if you look at their cap sheet, pretty much their entire team is free agents outside of Kuzma, Dame, and Giannis. So, I mean, like, Portis.
Kuzma would definitely be one of the pieces out of there. There's no, I don't see any scenario.
But he's only making $22 million, and Durant's making, off the top of my head, 45. So I feel like the only trade
more than that, I think 55 or something.
Whatever he's making, Kuzma's only making 22, and they don't have enough salary on their books, I feel like, to make that deal. So I feel like the only trade that works for Milwaukee is if you're trading Dame for KD. Because I don't know.
Why would you do? And the thing is, why would you do that if he's one of the core pieces, right? I get that. Durant is making 54 next year. Yeah.
Okay, so he's making 54. Kuzma making 22.
Sorry.
So you would still need another major salary in addition to Kuzma to make that deal, and they just don't have it under contract. So I feel like the only way to make that work. And look, if they get bounced in the first round and they're like, we're not trading Giannis, we're going to empty every chamber trying to put talent around him, and they want to shake it up, they could change the coach. They could also get rid of Lillard, replace him, because that's the only way that they can make it work, I feel like, financially. Because other than that, like, their roster is basically like Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, and a couple of two-way guys. I mean, like, literally everyone is pretty much a free agent. Gary Trent Jr. signed a 1-year deal. Taurean Prince signed a 1-year deal. Bobby Portis has a player option. Brook Lopez is a free agent. So, and I mean, look, I think that Brook is either going to retire or they will just bid him farewell and thank him for his services. So, I mean, like, you can take that $30 million or whatever Brook is making and cut that off their cap right off the bat. But I just don't know what else you have to trade. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
No, sorry. There's a little Wi-Fi issues here. No, I think logistics make it tough. And when you broke it down, it's like, because even though Kuzma's contract is very, very friendly, you still need to find more $40 million somewhere else to make that work.
And look, you might be able to say, because Milwaukee has no one under contract, they can trade Kuzma's 22, absorb Durant's 33, and then combine it with Dame and although I guess that would still put them over the cap, I don't think they'd logistically be able to do that. But I mean, let's say theoretically they were, and they were able to do a 1-for-1 swap. Milwaukee's only got one tradable first round.
Well, here's the thing. If we agree Giannis number 2 in the league right now, gotta keep the guy happy. Gotta keep him happy.
Yeah. No, I mean that's why I think everyone is theorizing that he's a logical choice to be moved, just because, like, they've probably run out of options. And he's never given any indication that he'd want to leave. So I mean,
Giannis?
Giannis. He hasn't said that if we don't win this year, I'm going to have a discussion with management. Like, he hasn't even gone that far. So, I mean, it's just theorizing based on the lack of available resources they have to move. And look, KD would be a really good fit next to him. But unfortunately for them, the only way to make that work logistically is to trade Dame. And then you're probably looking at a roster of like Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, Bobby Portis, Durant, and Giannis. So, I mean, like, you're just like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, I feel like, at that point.
Yeah,
Although, I
yeah,
mean, look,
yeah,
with how Giannis is playing now and Durant's ability to still score 30 points a game, maybe that's a lot more palatable to them, and maybe it's something they'd be willing to try. I have no idea. I mean, obviously, if you could just slot Durant in next to Dame and Giannis, it would make all the sense in the
yeah.
world.
But to your point, you may have to move those big contracts to make that work. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. All right, 7th pick in the draft, round 4. What you got?
Yeah. So I have a couple teams left. I mean, Minnesota I guess would be the next pick in my draft, just because Randall's going to be a free agent, and I feel like they're going to have some decisions to make in the direction they want to go. And I feel like with A-Rod now an owner of the team, he was a star baseball player. Would it make sense that a star baseball player would want to acquire one of the biggest stars in the league? And also maybe from a mentor, like a mentorship value to a guy like Anthony Edwards, seeing Kevin Durant on a daily basis, how he conducts himself, his work ethic, etc. Because, I mean, we talked about when we were going through the series, like, I thought that Minnesota showed a lot of immaturity in their last game, just given the fact that they had a chance to really take a stranglehold on the series, and it was almost like they were just satisfied getting out of there with one game. So, I mean, I feel like there's going to be an empty power forward spot there. Would some sort of would a sign and trade work? Would they be willing to move off of a guy like Rob Dillingham? And I don't think they have a lot of assets, but would a first, Rob Dillingham, and then a couple of their wings, would that make sense? I don't know. You might have to move a guy like Jaden McDaniels. I don't know if that works, for them. He might be a guy that they love. But look, if they get bounced in the first round, it's the same argument that a lot of teams are going to have. Like, how are we going to build this going forward? And they've got the same discussion that the Spurs are going to have with Wemby, with any of these teams are going to have. How do we keep our guy happy? Because I don't know that they can just rely on, okay, we have Anthony Edwards locked up for the next 5 years. Like, he could come out tomorrow and say, I want to be somewhere else. So, I mean, I feel like teams have to be cognizant of the fact that they have to keep their young guys happy. And how do you keep them happy and not do what Durant did and demand a trade? And that's by adding pieces around them and making their life easier. So, I mean, I don't think there's any better player to do that than Durant.
Yeah, Minnesota actually is on my list too. Also, he doesn't necessarily fit the Anthony Edwards timeline, but if you're trying to win now, he may fit the timeline in terms of Edwards' new contract, and if you don't win now, he may want to leave.
And also from the reports I heard, this was from Michael Scotto on Hoops Hype, that Minnesota was one of the teams that inquired about KD at the deadline. So, I mean, like, there was a desire.
They tried already then. Yeah.
For him then. So, I mean, I know Randall's going to be a free agent, but, like, if you were doing it at the deadline, does a Julius Randle, a Rob Dillingham, and maybe another young piece, and like a protected 2031 first or something like that, does that work?
Yeah.
For Phoenix, because they're getting 3 guys for 1 and a young point guard. Like, I'm just trying to make it work where Phoenix is getting something in addition to trading out Durant.
Right. Yeah. Again, he doesn't fit the Minnesota timeline. He just fits the Anthony Edwards timeline. So get him now, maximize Anthony Edwards now while you can before he gets disgruntled and wants to leave.
Yeah.
So
totally.
That's what I think. So okay, my pick now, 8th pick. I'm gonna go with the Clippers. Again, timeline. He fits them perfectly. I think the only issue you have there is, can him and James Harden make it work? What they have in the past, they did it before in OKC. Obviously, I can't really use Brooklyn because I think the clash is really between Kyrie and Harden, not so much Durant. He fits he fits a timeline. They're trying to win now, and depending on how this series goes with Denver and beyond, is Steve Ballmer going to get more desperate and lock in? You maximize Kawhi here. I mean, you might not get healthy Kawhi, but you have to figure the next 2 years of his contract, he's going to be out a lot. So KD is a nice insurance policy to have alongside James Harden. Yeah, are they going to be the old man group a little bit now? Stars, yeah, a little bit, but they're still really good players. And depending on how things end up this year in the playoffs, they may have some. Look, they got Ty Lue's coach. You have a deep roster. The Western Conference is really outside OKC again, and whoever steps up is pretty wide open. They're one of those teams in the mix, so it does make sense for this one. You're looking at a 2-3. You're looking at you sign Durant, for example. Let's say they lose to Denver in this series, but you sign Durant. You trade some pieces here and there. Not, you know right away you're getting you have a 2-3 window with this core. That's it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Clippers roster in terms of moves that would make sense. I think you're probably looking at Norman Powell, Derrick Jones Jr., and maybe Bogdanovich as salary cap filler, since next year will be the last year of his deal. So I mean, you're kind of getting some expirings if you're Powell's in the last year of his deal too. So I mean, Powell helps you. I mean, he had a career year this year shooting. So I mean, he's 31. I don't know if that helps Phoenix necessarily for the future.
Phoenix,
but I mean,
right.
Yeah, but I mean, you're replenishing your depth. I can't see LA moving either Harden or Zubats, given that both of them are probably going to be all NBA players this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like you got to move Powell, and you have to move a bunch of your other wings that are free agents, and then maybe a pick. So I mean, it's not outlandish to think that Ballmer would have an appetite for wanting to put the team on the next level. I mean, look, we've seen it with a lot of owners. I mean, we've seen Ishbia do it. We've seen the Nets owner do it. We've seen countless owners do it where they get impatient and they want to go for the shiny object. And I mean, he would fit really well with Kawhi and Harden, especially if you still have Zubac.
And this actually in a lot of ways protects Kawhi too, also during the regular season.
True. Yeah, and it allows you to sort of massage Kawhi through the year without having to worry about him playing 60 or 65 games. Maybe you can get away with him playing 50, sitting almost half the year while they sort of, manage his workload. And then you still have Harden, Durant, and Zubats. I mean, that's pretty good. So, I mean, I think that would make a lot of sense. I don't know that Phoenix would necessarily want to just take back like expirings. You'd be getting 2 expirings back. You'd be getting Derrick Jones. Maybe you're getting a pick. Would that be enough for them? I don't know. But I mean, it certainly makes sense for the Clippers. So I mean, I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah. All right. Your last pick, number 9, 5th round, final round.
I would say OKC, and I would leave it with the caveat of if they flame out in the playoffs this year, and do they flame out because they're missing scoring? I feel like that's a pretty easy deal to do, just given that OKC has got a massive amount of assets. I mean, they could trade Nikola Topic, the guy they drafted in the first round last year, who had a torn ACL. So, I mean, he's been rehabbing, but I mean, young point guard, like 6'7", European, would that be palatable? And then they have 3 first-round picks this year. So the salary, you're probably talking about Kenrich Williams, and I mean, you're not touching any of the main guys, obviously. I don't know that they could necessarily get there salary-wise, but I mean, I'm just looking at OKC, like, if they were to lose in the second round to the Clippers, do they then look at it and say, we've got so many assets and we haven't gotten any closer to winning a title? What is a piece that could put us over the top? And look, you could mention them for Giannis too, and which is why, again, I think that
I was going to say that.
Because at that point you could trade either Chet or Jalen Williams, one of them. Obviously, it wouldn't be both of them, but I mean, if you traded one of those guys, that's a blue chipper going back to Milwaukee. Plus, they have a plethora of picks. I feel like that, again, I don't know if they have any appetite for that. Being in a small market, they might say, we just want to keep building the way we're building and always having the flexibility to go in any direction we want. But does Shea then get disgruntled that, like, oh, I just had an MVP season and we're not doing anything to improve this roster? I mean, look, they won 68 games this year. But look, if you win 68 games and you get bounced in the second round, and I'm not predicting that, I'm just saying that they would loom as a potential trade partner for a number of players if they don't go as far as we all think that they should go.
Yeah. No, I think the Thunder thing will be interesting too. Also, it'll be a nice feel good story too. Also, him coming back to the team that drafted him. It'll be a definitely get a little shot in the arm. Now, this is also assuming that they flame out in the playoffs, which I don't see happening at this
Yes.
point.
Yeah, I don't see it
Um,
happening either, but I'm just saying that, like, they have that capability of doing it, and for, like, the 10 for our 9th or 10th pick in the league, I feel like that's, like, a dark horse option if, for whatever reason, doesn't work out.
right. The last pick in the draft, and I told this before in the past. I think I was actually in line at Disney World discussing this with you. But we were texting each other. I think it was back in February or March, I think it was. But the Grizzlies.
Mhm.
Now the caveat here is also they're kind of like Milwaukee. Are they going to stay pat? Are they going to be sellers? Are they going to be buyers? And what makes it tougher in this situation is that they already fired their coach. They fired their coach days before the playoffs started, weeks before the playoffs started. So that makes it complicated. So when you get a new GM, how does he feel? Does he feel like this team roster is good enough with another piece, or do you have to get rid of John Morant, or get rid of what pieces they want to get rid of? So if they view this team as a piece away, Kevin Durant, I don't know if Durant fits the timeline, though, to be honest. That's the only thing I think with Durant is that Memphis is one of those young-ish teams, but he'll fit in anywhere. But I don't think there's as much urgency to win in the same way. So is that somewhere Durant will want to be? And then of course the job thing's always pending. So it's definitely on the less likely side this happens anyway, especially now with post Jenkins firing. But they're definitely one of the teams to look out for, I think, because they're one of the teams that are considered a contender that needs a piece. But again, I just don't know how this team values, or whoever GM will be taking over this team values this roster, currently constructed.
Yeah, and knowing that Memphis is probably going to have to blow this up in terms of trading one of their big three, I think this is actually probably a pretty logical trade spot, because I feel like this is an easy trade if the two teams chose, whether it's Morant or whether it's Bane. Morant makes 39 million next year, so
That's not bad actually.
Bane makes almost 37 next year. And I mean, they're both Morant's 25, Bane's 26. So I mean, that would fit on a timeline with Devin Booker. So I feel like they wouldn't have to throw in any picks. Like, let's just use Bane as an example. Like, if you're trading Bane, Brandon Clark, and one of the young guys, like a Vince Williams or a Gigi Jackson, or another young player, I think if you're Phoenix, you could get behind that. And if you're Memphis, it's like, we need to shake things up, regardless of whether it's trading John Morant. I could see Ishbia being like, oh, we'll pair Morant and Booker and have the best backcourt in the league, that sort of thing. Or Bane fits on the timeline. It's another shooter. You could play Booker at the 2, Bane at the 3, or have Booker handle the ball and Bane play at the 2. So, I mean, they also have Scottie Pippen Jr., who they could say, like, if we move Morant, we feel comfortable giving him the reins for next year if we're adding a forward like KD and moving Morant. So I feel like they have two guys that are easy trade targets depending on which guy they want to move. Not saying that they won't move Jaren Jackson. Jackson's up for an extension this summer too. He's only under salary for $23 million next year. So I mean, he's probably going to be up for a max contract. So I mean, they're going to have decisions to make, and I think that one of those guys will not be there next year, just given the second apron. And do you want to be paying those three guys $50 million a year at some point for this to be the ceiling? So I think that it's logical to want to rearrange the pieces a little bit, and I don't think they'd have
I
any
think
draft.
I think this late season dip really took the air out of the balloon, because I thought when they were kind of one of those quiet teams in the West. They were number 2 for a while. They were hanging out around. Obviously ran away the whole thing pretty much early, but you had that 2 through 4 spot where it was Memphis a while. It was Memphis and Denver and those teams, and then like February came around and this just started to lower down the standings. Next, they're for the playing, and now they're playing team, and like, where does this happen? So and then I was fired the coach. The air of the balloon came out, I think, in February. So I'm looking at this team as I might have put odds on Durant going to Memphis. It'll be on the lower set of odds, but I'll give it some odds because of the fact that if they decide to get in the market for him and want to try to win with this core and believe in this core still, then there's a piece for there, and a piece that wouldn't be hard to acquire.
Yeah, I don't know that it makes sense to trade a 25 or a 26-year-old for a 37-year-old, but the salaries at least work out if they want to go in a different direction and they don't want to be
Right.
beholden to paying.
Saddle those three, right?
They don't
Saddle
be
those
saddled
salaries
with all
later on the
those
road,
salaries. Yeah.
right? And obviously, I mean, if John Morant wasn't a concern off the court, always been good, but it wasn't a concern off the court, I would say that they would have no issue, running off Baines. But the fact that I still think I think there's still a lot of apprehension around John Morant in that office, honestly.
Sure. Yeah,
And they need more. They need a larger sample size of him being a good citizen before they can say, okay, he's a good kid. We can do this. So, all right, that's your Kevin Durant future draft.